First of all, Maurice, on behalf of the tourism industry, I'd like to thank you for giving so generously of your time to chair the Tourism Renewal Group. And we consider ourselves very fortunate to have got somebody of your own stature, your own experience. And also, we like in the industry to have a fresh pair of eyes take a look at us now and again, because that's important to us, that we don't wind up believing our own propaganda all the time. So tell us, what were your earlier impressions as you got into this renewal group of the industry?
Well, they were interesting. My impressions from the outset didn't actually change by the time the report had concluded, and my biggest single learning was actually how relatively important tourism is, but how little that's known and understood. That was my single biggest realisation from the work on the report, I have to say. And I make reference to that in the conclusions. The second thing really that struck me was as we went through the consultation process, and it was very extensive, and what fascinated me about that was how the depth of knowledge and understanding and interest and passion and commitment that's there in the industry. And strangely enough, what I felt was that that's probably one of the greatest weaknesses as well as one of the greatest strengths of the industry. It is everywhere in Ireland. I mean, it's in every parish, it's in every village, it's in every town. People feel involved, they feel engaged by it, but because it's so small and in a way so dissipated, it doesn't really have a significant lobby, it doesn't have a significant voice, a consistent, if you like, singular voice. And if, today, if I'm listening to the news today or yesterday, I hear there's tractors in 29 regional towns in Ireland blocking up the traffic because the farmers have and I'm sure from their point of view a righteous issue. You don't hear tourist industry representatives doing that, for instance.
Have we been too nice about making our case, do you think?
Well, I think it probably in some respects. I think it's a bit more about the facts don't lie, and I say that in the report, right? This industry is worth over 4% of GNP. It deserves to get recognition for that. The industry needs to find a way to harness that in terms of its lobbying and its influence. I think it could do that better. I have no doubt that it could do that better. So for me, they were the main. I mean, there are lots and lots of other things in the report, but in terms of, for me, coming into the industry with a fresh pair of eyes.
That's interesting, and of course you're singing our song, because that's something we've felt ourselves for quite a while, that we haven't got the recognition that we deserve, but we're just going to have to work a little bit harder on it. Your report recommends a number of short-term actions which are critical if we're to get through this down cycle that we're going through. Can you tell us about a few of these?
Sure. Well, the first, in terms of the approach to the report, I mean, clearly we were asked to produce a report which would be relevant for a 3 to 5 year time frame, and obviously it was a midterm report. As we were working our way through the consultation process, it became obvious that the economy was getting into steeper decline. In fact, I describe it as a warp factor decline, and we were therefore conscious in producing the output of the report that we needed to separate short-term measures from medium to longer term. And in the context of the short-term measures, the issues that I think are very important and specific and need addressing are, first of all, the marketing investment in the brand. The brand Ireland has been well invested. I mean, and as a brand marketeer, I would recognise and applaud that. But this is not the time to reduce the investment in real terms behind the brand. That's crucial. And the reality is that in the context of the McCarthy report, they talk about reducing the investment in tourism by somewhere in the region of 20 to 23%. It's undoubtedly the case that there will be a reduced investment behind tourism. My key point and the group's key point here was, look, you must not reduce the overseas investment in real terms. You can get better value for money. So that was a key short-term measure. The other areas of importance clearly are the immediacy issue in relation to working capital and the lack of availability of it. And the group recommends that because NAMA is now processing, hopefully, and going to come into serious fruition, that the opportunity is there for the state to use its influence to insist on minimum threshold levels of working capital to be available to the industry as it goes through the autumn and the winter and more difficult times.
Yes, this is a real problem, because we still have seasonality, of course, in the business, and getting through those lean winter months is the key. But wearing your banking hat for a moment, if I may, are you hopeful that we will see a loosening up of credit to viable businesses happening over the coming months?
I am hopeful. I think it's taken longer than we all would have liked, and unfortunately these things do, because I suppose in truth a lot of it's been made up as we go along. And I mean, I don't decry that, because it's a reality of not having been here before. Somebody described in banking circles to me a couple of months ago, a senior banker said to me, it's like going back to school. We're dealing with issues that they've never ever confronted in their business lives. So having said that, it has taken longer, and it probably will take longer than any of us would reasonably want it to. And sort of my hope is that we do start to see an excess of capital flowing back in. And again, I think once we're through a process where NAM is actually in existence and assets start to pass into it and cash and liquidity starts to become available, I think that will help the overall confidence factor in the economy, not just in construction, but right throughout other sectors, including tourism.
Of course. But Maurice, having worked with you on the Renewal Group over the last number of months, I mean, your sense of enthusiasm was palpable throughout, and of course you met many people from the industry, many of whom are having tough times, but you're confident about the future of the industry?
I would be. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, you know, I go back to the greatest strength. It's embedded everywhere. One of the things that I noticed was the flexibility and almost a stoicism. Now, you might argue, well, maybe if we were less stoic and we were more irrational, we might get more from government and from the state. But there's no doubt about it. There are very, very experienced industry people who've been through previous recessions who will come through this. Some, unfortunately, will fall by the wayside, and that's as a consequence of a liquidity crisis which we haven't witnessed in the country before. That issue is there, but I think one of the other upsides that may emerge from this is that you know, and again the report highlights this, we have made investments in the product, particularly in hotels, in the wrong places, which were not driven by tourism, if you like, business cases. And a number of those will ultimately disappear, and I think that you know, I think in itself that's not a bad thing. We have good quality product. The key issue really now is for the industry to get the confidence back through government action to allow them to reinvest for the upturn, which will come. My sense is it won't be until 2011. But nevertheless, there's no doubt it will come back.
That's not too far away either. We've got to work our way through the next 12-15 months, and hopefully we'll see the lift then. So Maurice, again, on behalf of the industry, thanks a million for the tremendous amount of time and effort you put into this, and your own enthusiasm is so infectious that I think we've all got a lift out of it, and we look forward to getting the show back on the road in the very
Thanks,
near
Eamon.
future.
It was a pleasure to work on it, and I hope the industry does well and recovers more speedily than they maybe even itself expects.
Great. Thank you, Maurice.
Not at all.